Vaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarni Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Acharya Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Advait Acharya ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Haribol. So today is the appearance day of Advait Acharya, and I'm going to speak a little bit about him. Of course, he's one of the members of the Panchatattva, along with Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Shri Advait Acharya, Gadadhar Pandit, and Sri Srivas, and also, so Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Balaram is for his plenary expansion. Advait Acharya is Mahavishnu. Gadadhar is Radharani. And Srivas is Narada Muni, pure devotee. So the Panchatattva is representative of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Personality of Godhead. So you have Krishna, and then you have his first expansion, Balaram, and then you have Mahavishnu, and Radharani, of course, and his pure devotee Narada Muni. Okay, so in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Lila, chapter 3, one time Harivilas Thakur went to meet Advait Acharya, and Advait Acharya offered Harivilas Thakur respect and his obeisances. Advait Acharya embraced him. Harivilas Thakur offered his respect and obeisances to Advait Acharya. And then Advait Acharya embraced Harivilas Thakur and showed respect to him in return. So on the bank of the Ganges, in a solitary place, Advait Acharya made a cave-like home for Harivilas Thakur and spoke to him about the real meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita in terms of devotional service. And then Harivilas Thakur accepted food daily at the house of Advait Acharya. Meeting together, the two of them would taste the nectar of discourses on the subject matter of Krishna. Harivilas Thakur said, "My dear Advait Acharya, let me submit something before your honor. Every day you give me alms of food to eat. What is the necessity of this? Sir, you are living within a society of great brahmanas and aristocrats, but without fear or shame, you adore a lower-class man like me. My dear sir, your behavior is uncommon." Now, this is Harivilas Thakur speaking to Advait Acharya. Why is he speaking like this? Because Harivilas Thakur was born in a family of Muslims or Mohammedans, and therefore, from the point of view of these very high-class brahmanas, Harivilas Thakur would be considered a very low-class person because he's born in a family of meat-eaters and people who are normally antagonistic to Vaishnavas. So Harivilas Thakur is saying to Advait Acharya, "My dear sir, your behavior is uncommon. Indeed, Sometimes I am afraid to speak to you, but please favor me by protecting me from the behavior of society. So, why does he say that? Protecting me from the behavior of society? Because Haridas Thakur would not be accepted by the Brahmanas 500 years ago because he was a Muslim. Well, in the purport to this verse, until Leela chapter 3, verse number 220, Prabhupada writes, while Haridas Thakur was staying under the care of Advait Acharya, he was afraid of the behavior of the society in Santipura, Navadvipa, which was full of exceedingly aristocratic Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. Haridas Thakur was born in a Muslim family and was later recognized as a great Vaishnava, but nevertheless the Brahmanas were very critical of him. Thus, Haridas Thakur was afraid that Advait Acharya would be put into some difficulty because of his familiarity with Haridas Thakur. Shri Advait Acharya treated Haridas Thakur as a most elevated Vaishnava, but others, like Ramachandra Khan, were envious of Haridas Thakur. Of course, we have to follow in the footsteps of Advait Acharya, not caring for people like Ramachandra Khan. At present, many Vaishnavas are coming to our Krishna consciousness movement from among the Europeans and Americans. And although men like Ramachandra Khan are always envious of such Vaishnavas, one should follow in the footsteps of Sri Advait Acharya by treating all of them as Vaishnavas. Although they are not as exalted as Haridas Thakur, such Americans and Europeans having accepted the principles of Vaishnava philosophy and behavior should never be excluded from Vaishnava society. So you see, even some envious people have criticized Prabhupada for accepting disciples from America and Europe. Why? Because they're not born in Brahmana families, they're not born in India, therefore they're looked down upon as being unclean or uncultured. But obviously, Prabhupada is following the example of Advait Acharya and Narada Muni and many others. Don't forget, Narada Muni convinced Migrari, the hunter, to become a devotee and someone who was living by killing animals. And also, he convinced Valmiki, who was also a hunter. So the hunters are very low-class people. They not only kill animals, they enjoy killing them and making them suffer before they kill them. But yet, Narada Muni was able to make a person like Valmiki and later on Migrari into pure devotees. This is real Krishna consciousness. Vidya Vinaya Sampane, Brahmani Gavi Hastini, Sunichaiva Swapakecha, Pandita Samadarshina. A real Vaishnava is Pandita Samadarshina. He sees everyone with equal eyes. That is, he doesn't say, oh, this one's a Muslim, this one's a black African, this one's a white Caucasian. No, he doesn't exactly see the body of the person. He sees the relationship that person's soul has to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowing well that the Atma and Paramatma are sitting together in the heart of the living entity, and that Paramatma is observing the activities of the Jiva Atma. And when the Jiva Atma focuses his activities on pleasing Krishna, then Krishna accepts him or her as a genuine devotee and protects them. So, therefore, this vision of a pure devotee is seeing everyone's relationship with and everything's relationship with Krishna means that no one is excluded from becoming Krishna conscious. If they're willing to listen and take good instruction and follow instruction, then Vaishnava will initiate them and elevate them to higher and higher states of consciousness. So Advait Acharya was such a person, and he, like Narada Muni. So you see, Narada Muni is also part of the Panchatattva, the different aspects of Krishna. There's Krishna and Balaram and Advait Acharya are worshipped, and Gadadhar and Narada Muni are worshippers of Godhead. So to understand the principle of Godhead, you have to understand the Narada Muni, Radharani, Advait Acharya, Nityananda, and then, of course, Krishna. So Advait Acharya replied to Haridas Thakur, and he said, "My dear Haridasa, do not be afraid. I shall behave strictly according to the principles of the revealed scriptures." So he reassured Haridas Thakur that his respecting Haridas Thakur and offering him prasadam and treating him with all dignity and respect was not something that he should be worried about. That he was doing the right thing, because Haridas Thakur was chanting almost 23 and a half hours a day the holy names of the Lord. So he's not, at this point, he's no longer a Muslim or a Hindu or high caste or low caste. He's a pure devotee of the Lord, regardless of his origins. So he replied, "My dear Haridas, do not be afraid. I shall behave strictly according to the principles of the revealed scriptures." Shri Advait Acharya was not afraid of the strict Brahminical culture and customs of society, as stated in the Shastric injunctions, which are the true medium of evidence or proof anyone can go back to Godhead, even if born of a low family. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 9:32, "Mam hi partha vyapasritya tepi syu papyunha striya vaisas tata sudras tepi anti parangatim." O son of Pritha, Arjuna, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, like fallen women, Vaishyas or merchants, and Sudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination, though having taken a low birth in human society. One who accepts Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is quite competent to go back home, back to Godhead. And one who is a bona fide candidate for going back to Godhead should not be considered a low-born person or chandala. That is also a Shastric injunction, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 2:4-18. Kirata Hulinda Pulkasa Kirata Hunandra Pulinda Pulkasa Abira Samba Yavana Kasadaya Yenecha Papa Yad Apasrayasrayam Sudhyanti Tasmai Prabhavishnave Namaha. So this verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 4th chapter, 18th verse, and it says, not only the Yavanas and Kasadayas, so Yavanas are enemies of Vedic culture, and Kasadayas, if I'm not mistaken, they're like the Chinese or Mongolians, but even those born in still lower families can be purified, Sudhayanti, by the grace of a devotee of Lord Krishna. For Krishna empowers such a devotee to perform this purification. Advait Acharya had confidence in the Shastric evidence and did not care about social customs. The Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, is a cultural movement that does not care about local social conventions. Following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Advait Acharya, we can accept a devotee from any part of the world and recognize him as a Brahmana as soon as he is qualified due to following the principles of Vaishnava behavior. So this is a statement made by Srila Prabhupada based on Shastric evidence. And just like Advait Acharya said to Haridas Thakur, don't worry, he said, whatever I'm doing is backed by Shastric evidence that respecting you, even though you're born in a Muslim family, but because you have taken up Krishna consciousness seriously, and you've accepted Guru, and you're chanting always the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, then my obligation is to respect you as a Vaishnava, regardless of your birth, regardless of social customs and other types of societal restrictions. No, you are a genuine Vaishnava, and you deserve all respect. Okay, so then Advait Acharya said, feeding you, O Haridas, is equal to feeding 10 million brahmanas. In other words, because Haridas is always chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, he considers him superior to brahmanas. And he says, feeding you is equal to feeding 10 million brahmanas. Advait Acharya said, therefore accept this Shraddha Patra, this prasadam. Thus Advait Acharya made him eat. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, Shraddha is prasadam, offered to the forefathers at a certain date of the year or month. The Shraddha Patra, or plate, offered to the forefathers is then offered to the best of the brahmanas in society. Instead of offering the Shraddha Patra to any other brahmana, Advait Acharya offered it to Haridas Thakur, considering him greater than any of the foremost brahmanas. This act by Sri Advait Acharya proves that Haridas Thakur was always situated in a transcendental position and was therefore always greater than even the most exalted Brahmana, for he was situated above the mode of goodness of the material world. Referring to the Bhakti Sandarbha, text 177, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur quotes the following statements from the Garuda Purana in this connection. Brahmananam sahasrebhya satrayaji visisyate satrayaji sahasrebhya sarva vedanta paraga, and so forth. And it says, a Brahmana qualified to offer sacrifices is better than an ordinary Brahmana, and better than such a Brahmana is one who has studied all the Vedic scriptures. Among many such Brahmanas, one who is a devotee of Lord Vishnu is the best, and among many such Vaishnavas, one who fully engages in the service of the Lord is the best. And then, Bhaktir asta vida hiesa yasmin leche pivartate. There are many different kinds of devotees, but even a Vaishnava, coming from a family of Malechas or Yavanas, is understood to be a learned scholar, complete in knowledge. If he knows the Vaishnava philosophy, he should therefore be given charity, for such a Vaishnava is as worshipable as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then another verse, Name Bhaktas Chaturvedi Mad Bhakta Swa Pacha Priya. Lord Krishna says, even if a non-devotee comes from a Brahmana family and is expert in study, even if a non-devotee comes from a Brahmana family and is expert in studying the Vedas, he is not very dear to me. Whereas, even if a sincere devotee comes from a low family of meat-eaters, he is very dear to me. Such a sincere, pure devotee should be given charity, for he is as worshipable as I. Wow, what a verse. And then Jagat Nistaralagi Karena Chintana. Avaishnava Jagat Kemane Haibe Mochana. Advait Acharya was always absorbed in thoughts of how to deliver the fallen souls of the entire world. Quote, the entire world is full of non-devotees, he thought. How will they be delivered? Well, see, this is the heart of the devotee. When he sees other people suffering, he knows it's unnecessary. And therefore, he feels obliged to do something to help them, to get out of their ignorance that's causing the suffering. And so they can prepare themselves to go back to Godhead. Then he says, see Advait Acharya, this is the purport to the verse we just read. Advait Acharya was always absorbed in thoughts of how to deliver the fallen souls of the entire world. The entire world is full of non-devotees. He thought, how will they be delivered? So Prabhupada writes, Srila Advait Acharya sets the standard for acharyas in the Vaishnava Sampradaya. An acharya must always be eager to deliver the fallen souls. A person who establishes a temple or mata to take advantage of people's sentiments by using for his livelihood what people contribute for the worship of the deity cannot be called a Goswami or Acharya. One who knows the conclusion of the Shastras, follows in the footsteps of his predecessors, and endeavors to preach the bhakti cult all over the world is to be considered an Acharya. The role of an Acharya is not to earn his livelihood through the income of the temple. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that if one earns the livelihood by displaying the deity in the temple, he is not an Acharya or Goswami. It would be better for him to accept service even as a sweeper in the street, for that is a more honorable means of earning one's living. Okay, so basically he's making the point that if you just set up some building, put a deity in it, and hope that people come and give donations, and you use the donation for your own purposes, selfish purposes, that is abominable. And such a person cannot be an Acharya or a Goswami. And it's better for him to accept service even as a sweeper in the street, for that is more honorable and there's a more honorable means of earning one's living. There you go. So Advait Acharya was, it says, Krishna avatari te Advaita pratijya karila jala tulasidiya puja karite lagiya. Determined to deliver all the fallen souls, Advait Acharya decided to cause Krishna to descend. With this vow, he began to offer Ganges water and tulsi leaves to worship the Lord. So, yes, Advait Acharya, in a sense, because of his ardent prayers, sincere prayers, beckoned Lord Chaitanya to descend into this world. And he did it by worshiping a Shalagram Shila and offering Ganges water and tulsi leaves to a Shalagram Shila. And because of his sincere appeal, and because of Haridas Thakur chanting almost the entire 24 hours, sincerely and intensely and reverently the holy names, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Dui Janera Bhaktye Chaitanya Kaila Avatara Nama Prema Prachari Kaila Jagat Udara. Because of the devotional service of these two persons, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, these two persons meaning Advait Acharya, worshipping his Shalagram Shila and beseeching the Lord to descend, Lord Chaitanya, and Haridas Thakur, who was sitting in a cave that Advait Acharya provided him, and Haridas Thakur was chanting very, very ardently and reverently the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So it says, similarly, Haridas Thakur chanted in his cave on the bank of the Ganges with the intention of causing Krishna's descent. So you have both Advait Acharya and Haridas Thakur praying that Lord Chaitanya descend into this world. Because of the devotional service of these two persons, Haridas Thakur and Advait Acharya, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended as an incarnation. Thus he preached the holy name of the Lord and ecstatic love of Krishna to deliver the entire world. Okay. So that's very interesting. Then, a little bit earlier, so I just read from the Antya Lila, 3rd chapter, verse 216 onward. And then, that was verse 216 onward. And then next, in the Madhya Lila, chapter 3, there are two very nice pastimes, beginning Advait Acharya invited Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda to have prasadam in his house. And he invited them both to first come and witness the arti being performed in his house. So, after arti, they were shown into a small room where there were 3 seats, and so after arti was performed for the deities in the temple, Lord Krishna was made to lie down to rest. Advait Acharya then came out to submit something to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shri Advaita Prabhu said, "My dear lords, kindly enter this room." The 2 brothers, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, then came forward to take the prasadam. This is after arti. When Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda went to accept the prasadam, they both called Mukunda and Haridasa to come with them. However, Mukunda and Haridas both with folded hands spoke as follows. When Mukunda was called for, he submitted, "My dear sir, I have something to do that is not yet finished. Later I shall accept the prasadam, so you 2 Prabhus should now please enter the room." Haridas Thakur said, "I am the most sinful and lowest among men. Later I shall eat 1 palmful of prasadam while waiting outside." And Prabhupada writes, although the Hindus and Muslims lived together in a very friendly manner, still there were distinctions between them. The Muslims were considered Yavanas, or lowborn, and whenever a Muslim was invited, he would be fed outside of the house, although personally called by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu to take prasadam with them. Still, out of great humility, Haridasa Thakur submitted, "I shall take the prasadam outside of the house." Although Haridas Thakur was an exalted Vaishnava, accepted by Advait Acharya, Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu nonetheless, in order not to disturb social tranquility, Haridas Thakur humbly kept himself in the position of a Muslim outside the jurisdiction of the Hindu community. Therefore, he proposed to take prasadam outside the house, although he was in an exalted position and equal to other great Vaishnavas. He considered himself a papista, a most sinful man, and adama, the lowest among men. Although a Vaishnava may be very advanced spiritually, he keeps himself externally humble and submissive. Advait Acharya took Lord Nityananda's hand and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu within the room. No, it says, Advait Acharya took Lord Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu within the room, and the two lords saw the arrangement of the prasadam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was especially very pleased. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was pleased because he saw how nicely so many varieties of food were prepared for Krishna. Actually, all the kinds of prasadam are prepared for Krishna, not for the people, but the devotees partake of prasadam with great pleasure. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu approved of all the methods employed in cooking and offering food to Krishna. Indeed, he was so pleased that he said, "Frankly, I will personally take the lotus feet of anyone who can offer Krishna such nice food and place those lotus feet on my head, birth after birth." When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered the room, he saw 3 divisions of food, and he knew that all of these were meant for Krishna. However, he did not understand the intentions of Advait Acharya. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that one of these servings was offered in a metal dish and was meant for Krishna, whereas the other 2 were placed in big banana leaves. The offering in the metal plate was personally offered by Advait Acharya to Krishna. The other 2 servings on banana leaves were to be accepted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda. That was Advait Acharya's intention, but he did not disclose this to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the food offered in 3 places, he thought that all of it was meant for Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Let us sit down in these 3 places and we shall take prasadam." However, Advait Acharya said, "I shall distribute the prasadam." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought that all 3 servings were meant for distribution. Therefore, he asked for another 2 banana leaves, saying, "Let us have a little quantity of vegetable and rice." Advait Acharya said, "Just sit down here on these seats." Catching their hands, he sat them both down. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "It is not proper for a sannyasi to eat such a variety of foods. If he does, how can he control his senses?" Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word upakarana indicates a variety of foods, such as dal, vegetables, and other varieties of possible dishes that one can eat very nicely with rice. It is not proper, however, for a sannyasi to eat such palatable dishes. If he did so, he would not be able to control his senses. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not encourage sannyasis to eat very palatable dishes, for the whole Vaishnava cult is Vairagya Vidya, as renounced as possible. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also advised Raghunath Dasa Goswami not to eat very palatable dishes, wear very nice garments, or talk on mundane subjects. These things are all prohibited for those in the renounced order. The Lord does not accept anything to eat that is not first offered to Krishna. All the food offered to Krishna are given to the grihastas, the householders. There are many nice things offered to Krishna: garlands, bedsteads, nice ornaments, nice food, and even nicely prepared pan, betel nuts. But a humble Vaishnava, thinking his body material and nasty, does not accept such preparations for himself. He thinks that by accepting such things, he will offend the lotus feet of the Lord. Those who are sahajiyas cannot understand what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meant when he asked Advait Acharya to bring him 2 separate leaves and give a small quantity of the prasadam to him. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not accept the food that had already been served, Advait Acharya said, "Please give up your concealment. I know what you are, and I know the confidential meaning of your accepting the sannyasa order." Advait Acharya thus requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to eat and give up juggling words. The Lord replied, "I certainly cannot eat so much food." Advait Acharya then requested the Lord to simply accept the prasadam without pretense. If he could not eat it all, the balance could be left on the plate. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "I will not be able to eat so much food, and it is not the duty of a sannyasi to eat so much food. It's not the duty of the sannyasi to leave remnants." And Prabhupada writes, according to Srimad Bhagavatam 11:18-19, "Bahir jalasayam gatva tato pasprisya vagyata." Whatever edibles a sannyasi gets from a householder's house, he should take outside near some lake or river, and after offering the food to Vishnu, Brahma, and the sun, 3 divisions, he should eat the entire offering and not leave anything for others to eat. In this connection, Advait Acharya referred to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's eating at Jagannath Puri. Lord Jagannath and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are identical. Advait Acharya pointed out that at Jagannath Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ate 54 times a day, and each time he ate many hundreds of pots of food. Sri Advait Acharya said, "The amount of food that 3 people can eat does not constitute even a morsel for you. In proportion to that, these edibles are not even 5 morsels of food for you." So Lord Chaitanya is taking the part of a sannyasi and saying, "I can't eat all this opulent food." And Advait Acharya is basically saying, "Look, don't try and fool me. I know who you are. Every day you're given 54 opulent offerings in Jagannath Puri. Therefore, this is nothing for you to eat." Sri Advait Acharya said, "The amount of food that 3 people can eat does not constitute even a morsel for you. In proportion to that, these edibles are not even 5 morsels of food for you." Advait Acharya continued, "By my great fortune, you have just come to my house, my home. Please do not juggle words. Just begin eating and do not talk." Upon saying this, Advait Acharya supplied water to the 2 lords so that they could wash their hands. The 2 lords then sat down and, smiling, began to eat the prasadam. Nityananda Prabhu said, "I have undergone fasting for 3 days continuously. Today I had hoped to break my fast." Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was thinking that the quantity of food was enormous, Nityananda Prabhu, on the contrary, thought it was not even a morsel. He had been fasting for 3 days and had greatly hoped to break fast on that day. Indeed, he said, "Although I am invited to eat by Advait Acharya, today also is a fast day for me. So small a quantity of food will not fill even half of my belly." So basically they're joking with each other now. Advait Acharya replied, "Sir, you are a mendicant traveling on pilgrimage. Sometimes you eat fruits and roots, and sometimes you simply go on fasting." And he continues, "I am a poor Brahmana, and you have come to my house, my home. Please be satisfied with whatever little food you have received and give up your greedy mentality." Lord Nityananda replied, "Whatever I may be, you have invited me. Therefore, you must supply as much as I want to eat." His Divine Grace Advait Acharya, after hearing this statement of Nityananda Prabhu, took the opportunity presented by the joking words and spoke to him as follows. Advait Acharya said, "You are a reject Paramahansa, and you have accepted the renounced order of life just to fill your belly, I can understand that your business is to give trouble to brahmanas. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes, there is always a difference of opinion between a Smarta Brahmana and a Vaishnava Goswami. There are even Smarta opinions and Vaishnava Goswami opinions available in astrological and astronomical calculations. By calling Nityananda a Brasta Avaduta, a rejected Paramahansa, Advait Acharya Prabhu, in a sense, accepted Nityananda Prabhu as a Paramahansa. In other words, so Advait Acharya, in a sense, accepted Nityananda Prabhu as a Paramahansa. In other words, Nityananda Prabhu had nothing to do with the rules governing Smarta Brahmins. Thus, under pretense of condemning him, Advait Acharya was actually praising him. In the Avaduta stage, the Paramahansa stage, which is the supermost stage, one may appear to be Vishayi, or on the platform of sense gratification. But in actuality, he has nothing to do with sense gratification. At that stage, a person sometimes accepts the symbols and dress of a sannyasi and sometimes does not. Sometimes he dresses like a householder. We should know, however, that these are all joking words between Advait Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu. They are not to be taken as insults. In Kada Daha, sometimes people misunderstood Nityananda Prabhu to belong to the Shakta Sampradaya, whose philosophy is Anta Shakta Bahi Shaiva Sabayam Vaishnavo Mata. According to the Shakta Sampradaya, a person called Kola Avaduta thinks materially while externally appearing to be a great devotee of Lord Shiva. When such a person is in an assembly of Vaishnavas, he appears like a Vaishnava. Actually, Nityananda Prabhu did not belong to such a community. He was out of place. So, it says, according to the Shakta Sampradaya, a person called Kola Avaduta thinks materially while externally appearing to be a great devotee of Lord Shiva. When such a person is in an assembly of Vaishnavas, he appears like a Vaishnava. Actually, Nityananda Prabhu did not belong to such a community. Nityananda Prabhu was always a brahmachari of a sannyasi of the Vaidika order. Actually, he was a Paramahansa. Sometimes he is accepted to be a disciple of Lakshmi Pati Tirtha. If he is so accepted, Nityananda Prabhu belonged to the Madhva Sampradaya. He did not belong to the Tantrika Sampradaya of Bengal. Advait Acharya accused Nityananda Prabhu, saying, "You can eat 10 to 20 manas of rice. I am a poor brahmana. How shall I get so much rice?" A mana is a measurement containing about 40 kilos. So he's saying you can eat 400 to 800 pounds of rice. Whatever you have, though it be a palmful of rice, please eat it and get up. Don't show your madness and strew the remnants of food here and there. So Advait Acharya is speaking pretty forcefully to Nityananda. Actually, the whole thing is a joking experience. In this way, Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ate and talked with Advait Acharya jokingly. After eating half of each vegetable preparation given to him, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu abandoned it and went on to the next. As soon as half of the vegetable in the pot was finished, Advait Acharya filled it up again In this way, as the Lord finished half of a preparation, Advait Acharya again and again filled it up. However, filling a pot with vegetables, after filling a pot with vegetables, Advait Acharya requested them to eat more. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "How much more can I go on eating?" Advait Acharya said, "Please do not give up on whatever I have already given you. Now, whatever I am giving you may you may eat half and leave half." In this way, by submitting various humble requests, Advait Acharya made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda eat. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fulfilled all the desires of Advait Acharya. Again, Nityananda Prabhu jokingly said, "My belly is not yet filled up. Please take away your food. I have not taken the least of it." After saying this, Nityananda Prabhu took a handful of rice and threw it on the floor in front of Advait Acharya, as if he were angry. In front of what? Yeah, Advait Acharya. When 2 or 4 pieces of the thrown rice touched his body, Advait Acharya began to dance in various ways with the rice still stuck to his body. When the rice thrown by Nityananda Prabhu touched his body, Advait Acharya thought himself purified by the touch of remnants thrown by Paramahansa Nityananda. Therefore he began dancing. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word avaduta refers to one above all rules and regulations, sometimes not observing all the rules and regulations of a sannyasi. Nityananda Prabhu exhibited the behavior of a mad avaduta. He threw the remnants of food on the ground, and some of these remnants touched the body of Advait Acharya. Advait Acharya accepted this happily because he presented himself as a member of the community of Smarta Brahmanas. By touching the remnants of food thrown by Nityananda Prabhu, Advait Acharya immediately felt himself purified of all Smarta contamination. The results of food left by a pure Vaishnava are called Maha Prasadam. This is completely spiritual and is identified with Lord Vishnu. Such remnants are not ordinary. The spiritual master is to be considered on the stage of Paramahansa and behind the jurisdiction of the Varnashrama institutions. The remnants of food left by the spiritual master and similar Paramahansas or pure Vaishnavas are purifying. When an ordinary person touches such prasadam, his mind is purified and his mind is raised to the status of a pure Brahmana. The behavior and statements of Advait Acharya are meant for the understanding of ordinary people who are unaware of the strength of spiritual values, not knowing the potency of food left by a bona fide spiritual master and pure devotee. Well, I had the opportunity several times of having some remnants of Srila Prabhupada's plate, and I consider that a great benediction. Advait Acharya jokingly said, "My dear Nityananda, I invited you, and indeed I have received the results. You have no fixed caste or dynasty. By nature, you are a madman." And purport, the words Sahaje Pagala, by nature a madman, indicate that Nityananda Prabhu was transcendently situated on the Paramahansa stage because he always remembered Radha and Krishna and their service. This was transcendental madness. Shri Advait Acharya was pointing out this fact. Jai Shri Radha Nilamadhava. To make me a madman like yourself, you have thrown the remnants of your food at me. You did not even fear the fact that I am a Brahmana. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The words apanara sama indicate that Advait Acharya considered himself to belong to the Smarta Brahmanas, and he considered Nityananda to be on the transcendental stage with pure Vaishnavas. Lord Nityananda gave Advait Acharya his remnants to situate him on the same platform and make him a pure unalloyed Vaishnava or a Paramahansa. Advait Acharya's statement indicates that a Paramahansa Vaishnava is transcendentally situated. A pure Vaishnava is not subject to is not subject to the rules and regulations of the Smarta Brahmanas. That was the reason for Advait Acharya stating, Apanara samamore karibharatare, to raise me to your own standard. A pure Vaishnava, or a person on the Paramahansa stage, accepts the remnants of food, Mahaprasadam, as spiritual. He does not consider it to be material or sense gratificatory. He accepts Mahaprasadam not as an ordinary dal and rice, but as spiritual substance. To say nothing of the remnants of food left by a pure devotee, prasadam is never polluted, even if it is touched by mouths of a chandala, even if touched by the mouth of a chandala. Indeed, it retains its spiritual value. Therefore, by eating or touching such, Therefore, by eating or touching such Mahaprasadam, a Brahmana is not degraded. There is no question of being polluted by touching the remnants of such food. Actually, by eating such Mahaprasadam, one is freed from all contaminations of the material condition. That is the verdict of the Shastra. Nityananda Prabhu replied, these are the remnants of food left by Lord Krishna. If you take them to be ordinary remnants, you have committed an offense. And purport. In the Brihad Vishnu Purana, it is stated that one who considers Mahaprasadam to be equal to ordinary rice and dal certainly commits a great offense. Ordinary eatables are touchable and untouchable, but there are no such dualistic considerations when prasadam is concerned. Prasadam is transcendental, and there are no transformations or contaminations, just as there are no contaminations or transformations in the body of Lord Vishnu himself. Thus, even if one is a Brahmana, he is certain to be attacked by epoxy, and prasadam is transcendental, and there are no transformations or contaminations, just as there are no contaminations or transformations in the body of Lord Vishnu himself. Thus, even if one is a Brahmana, he is certain to be attacked by leprosy and bereft of all family members if he makes such dualistic considerations. Such an offender goes to hell, never to return. This is the injunction of the Brihad Vishnu Purana. So, obviously, prasadam is transcendental, and one must respect it with all reverence and honor it. Srila Nityananda Prabhu continued, if you invite at least 100 sannyasis to your home and feed them sumptuously, your offense will be nullified. Advait Acharya replied, I shall never again invite another sannyasi, for it is a sannyasi who has spoiled all of my Brahminical smriti regulations. After this, Advait Acharya made the lords wash their hands and mouths. He then took them to a nice bed and made them lie down to take rest. Shri Advait Acharya fed the two lords cloves and cardamom mixed with tulsi flowers. Thus, there was a good flavor within their mouth. Shri Advait Acharya then smeared the bodies of the lords with sandalwood pulp and then placed very fragrant flower garlands on their necks. When the Lord lay down on a bed, Advait Acharya waited to massage his legs, but the Lord was very hesitant and spoke as follows to Advait Acharya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Advait Acharya, you have made me dance in various ways. Now give up this practice. Go with Mukunda and Haridas and accept your lunch. Thereupon Advait Acharya took prasadam with Mukunda and Haridasa, and they all wholeheartedly ate as much as they desired. So, this is a pastime, very interesting pastime of Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya in the home of Advait Acharya. And Advait Acharya and Lord Nityananda have their little exchange, but it's actually very profound. And by Lord Nityananda throwing rice on Advait Acharya considers himself purified by the touch of remnants thrown by Paramahansa Nityananda. Therefore, he began to dance. So the whole idea of associating with pure devotees is to get Maha Maha Prasadam. And it's non-different than Lord Vishnu. So Advait Acharya is presenting himself as a member of the community of Smarta Brahmins. And so Smarta Brahmins are concerned with a lot of rituals, usually for material benefit, and they don't really understand Krishna or Krishna consciousness. So therefore, by taking prasadam, or the remnants, after Lord Chaitanya has taken his prasadam, and taking that Maha Maha prasadam, that is enough to purify anyone from the material concept of life. Yeah. So this is all very ecstatic exchanges between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, and Advait Acharya. Advait Acharya ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Bol. Thank you very much. We'll stop right there for tonight. Hari Bol.